welcome into Texans Today. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and we have a jam-packed show on tap for you today. The Texans, they got some bad news, but I'll go ahead and let you know why it might not be as bad as people are thinking. We have some bad news on the injury side, and we also have some bad news coming down from the NFL, NFLPA, some rule changes, or better yet, some non-rule changes happening in the NFL. I'll get into all that on today's show, and later on, I'll tell you about that major injury news around the Houston Texans. But first, let's kick it to Tom Pelissero, where he tweeted out bright and early that there's an important note as teams construct their initial 53-man roster. NFL teams were informed that the NFLPA vetoed the revised emergency third quarterback rule that would have allowed teams to elevate a bona fide QB from the practice squad on unlimited number of times during the regular season. So the rule reverted to the 2023 version, which says the emergency third quarterback must be on the 53-man roster, not an elevation. And this is big news for the Houston Texans. What this means is the Texans are more likely now to keep a third quarterback on that 53-man roster rather than just keeping CJ Stroud and Davis Mills, elevating that third guy from the practice squad each and every week. That means they're going to have to spend another roster spot on the quarterback position. More than likely, the Texans might roll the dice and only keep two quarterbacks. They might still only keep CJ Stroud and Davis Mills, but for the time being, the percentage chance of them keeping a third quarterback just bumped up significantly. And who this rule hurts? I mean, we already saw right before I started filming, I literally wrote out Ben Skoranek, this hurts him a ton. He just got released right before we started filming this video. This also hurts UDFA British Brooks, the running back. I know a lot of y'all absolutely love him as a running back, fullback kind of hybrid. This rule hurts him a ton. Malik Fisher, the UFL signing who really shined in a couple of the preseason games, it hurts him. UDFA Max Tooley as well, and late-round pick Marcus Harris. It hurts all the roster bubble fringe guys on this team who are looking to make the roster because that takes another spot away from a linebacker position, a wide receiver, an offensive line, a defensive line. It takes a position away from there because you still want to keep that third quarterback just in case something happens. So I'll ask you, I'll kick it to you, should the Texans only keep two quarterbacks on their roster? Should they just roll with CJ Stroud and Davis Mills, or should they keep a third quarterback on the team? Let me know your thoughts down below. Should they keep only two quarterbacks? Give me a yes, give me a no. Let me know your reasoning behind that. I'll be looking down in the comment section. I think they should only keep two quarterbacks and roll the dice. Keep a guy on the practice squad. You have Davis Mills, who I really do trust as a backup option. I really do think he's one of the best backup options in the entire National Football League. And you have Case Keenum, who would, in fact, be your quarterback three, I think, if you did keep three quarterbacks. But he's been dealing with the foot injury all throughout training camp in the preseason. This reported by Aaron Wilson yesterday. And he was also kind of injured a little bit in that first quarter of the Rams preseason game. So do you need to keep Case Keenum as that quarterback three? I would much rather see Keenum come back on this team as a practice squad / coach mentor type player. We saw him come into the Browns game, into the Titans game last year, and he played okay, but he's old. He doesn't have it anymore. He was a good quarterback for his time, but I don't think he needs to have his own roster spot, be one of the final 53 men that the Texans keep on this roster. I really do think going with two quarterbacks would be the best plan of action for D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio. Coming up, I have some major Texans injury news that will 100% affect the final 53-man roster. Good news on one end, bad news on the other. I'll get into that in just a moment. But today's show is sponsored by Factor Meals. I couldn't do today's show if it wasn't for our amazing sponsor, and you should get started with Factor Meals today. Losing weight and eating healthy can be a difficult, daunting task. I know the struggle of trying to eat better and struggling with the time commitment to cook at home. Factor Meals helps out a ton. If you're a busy guy like me who still wants to eat healthy, meet your wellness goals in time for football season thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Make today the day you kickstart a new healthy routine. What are you waiting for? Treat yourself to restaurant quality meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and blackened salmon. Keep kitchen time to a minimum. Factor meals are ready in just 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes. So no shopping, no prepping, no cooking or cleaning up. Just some great, healthy, clean eating. Head to factormeals.com/TexansChat50 and use code TexansChat50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code TexansChat50 at factormeals.com/TexansChat50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is still active. Now let's get into this Texans injury news, and let's start off with the bad. Bad news first. Christian Harris, questionable for week 1. He's been dealing with that lower leg injury, that soft tissue injury that's been plaguing him all off season. He hasn't been able to practice at all during training camp. He tried to come back during a training camp practice and halfway through had to be evaluated by the medical team, taken away, and we haven't seen him since. We haven't seen him play any preseason game action, any training camp action since that time. So will they place him on the short-term IR list? This means, if he's placed on the short-term IR list, he won't be able to return until week 5. But maybe that's what they need to get Christian Harris healthy, because you don't want to risk him coming back or, put him on the 53-man roster, take a spot away from somebody else, and he's not ready to go for the first 2, maybe 3 weeks of the season. And we know with these soft tissue injuries, you have to let them heal properly, or there's a high chance that they're going to re-aggravate that injury. Field Yates, with a little knowledge about, the 53-man roster and how you kind of place these guys in different designations, teams can reduce their roster by keeping players on the PUP list, which Christian Harris was not on the PUP list, so can't just go ahead and put him on the PUP list now, or else he'll have to miss the entire season. These players are eligible to return to game action soon. They're not eligible to return to game action sooner than week 5, but the new NFL rule around the short-term IR teams are allowed to place 2 players on this IR designation, which means they're going to have to miss the first 4 games. But I do think Christian Harris could be an option to put on that short-term IR, miss the first 4 games. One of the 2 players the Texans could put that designation on. And what that means for the Texans is if they put him on that short-term IR, I really do think they're going to be really in on a trade for a linebacker, or possibly claiming somebody off of waivers or in free agency, because the linebacker position for this Texans is very thin. Behind Azeez Al-Shire, the next guy up is Christian Harris, and behind that, there's not a lot of confidence in the rest of this linebacker room. You have, Henry To'oTo'o, who hasn't proved the Tunde. You signed Delshon Phillips, who has looked decent, but he's been a backup his entire career. Same with Neville Hewitt, who's more of a special teams kind of spot starter guy for you at the linebacker position. I'm not super confident in this linebacker room without Christian Harris. What say you, though? How worried are you about the Christian Harris injury? Scale it on a scale of 1 to 10. 1, no worries. You're chilling on the beach with a Corona. You're absolutely having a great time. 10, you are hitting the panic meter. Let me know your thoughts down below. I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm around a 6, 7, because I think he's supposed to be an integral part of this Texans defense going into this season. And if he's not there, I don't know what the Texans do at that 2nd and 3rd linebacker spot going into the year. Now, I couldn't do it all bad. I couldn't give you all bad news on today's video. So now for some good news. Will Anderson Jr. on track to play week 1. He's been dealing with an ankle injury, but all the reports from Aaron Wilson, all the reports from the Texans beat reporters have been that Will Anderson Jr., they're just being precautious with his injury, and they want him, to be fully ready to go week 1, and he is on track to play week 1 up against the Indianapolis Colts. That's all I have for you on today's show, folks. I'll be keeping you updated all throughout today with all the Texans roster cuts, their final 53-man roster coming down later on today. And then still, we'll have more moves coming after that. We'll have, waiver claims, possibly trades, more free agent signings, more cuts all throughout this week. Another reason why you hit that sub button to be the most informed Texans fan you possibly can be.